Welcome to Chapter 15 Monopoly. In Module 2 Profit Maximization for Monopoly, Segment 3, we will analyze the monopolist's profit maximum using a diagram. What will you learn in this segment? You will learn to use a diagram to find the quantity that maximizes the monopolist's profit. The optimal quantity is where MR equals MC. This is very similar to the segment before. Actually, we follow the same procedure than in the segment before, except in the segment before we calculated the numbers, and here we use a graph. You will also learn to use a diagram to find the price the monopolist should charge. This price will generate exactly the demanded quantity that matches the quantity the monopolist has produced. And finally, you will learn to mark a rectangular area in the diagram which reflects the monopolist's profit. Here is a slide again which explains how to calculate marginal revenue and marginal cost. In this segment we will not focus so much on how to calculate marginal revenue and marginal cost. We will focus more on the fact that the monopolist reaches a profit maximum when marginal revenue equals marginal cost. This was explained in segment 1 of this module. If you don't remember that very well, please go back to module 1, because this assumption is very crucial for this segment and for the segments to follow. Here is a diagram we will use to find the optimum quantity for the monopolist to maximize his or her profit. In the diagram you see a red line, which is the demand curve, a blue line, which represents marginal cost, and a green line, which represents marginal revenue. The green marginal revenue curve is always below the red demand curve. Why is that? Remember the quantity effect and the price effect from marginal revenue? If we pick a quantity, for example, the optimum quantity, but it doesn't have to be the optimum quantity. So if we pick a quantity and we go straight up until we reach the demand curve, go to the side, it tells us what is the price which generates exactly this quantity demanded. If we take the same point and go up until we reach the marginal revenue curve, it will tell us what is the marginal revenue which goes with this quantity. The marginal revenue is always smaller than the price, because for marginal revenue we have two effects: the quantity effect, which equals the price, and the price effect, which is always negative, and therefore marginal revenue is always smaller than the price. The marginal revenue curve is always below the demand curve. Now we will use this diagram to find the optimum quantity for the monopolist. Do you remember from the other segments? The monopolist maximizes profit when marginal revenue equals marginal costs. This is actually where the intersection point is between the marginal cost curve and the marginal revenue curve. But this doesn't tell us anything about the quantity. To find the quantity which goes with this point, we have to go straight down until we hit the quantity axis. Now the monopolist knows how much to produce. What the monopolist does not know, which price should he or she charge to make sure that the generated demanded quantity matches exactly what was produced. To find the price which generates the demand for the optimum quantity, you have to go straight up from the quantity until you reach the demand curve. You don't want to stop at the intersection point of marginal cost and marginal revenue curve. Because if you would stop there and go to the left, the vertical axis would tell you what marginal revenue or what marginal cost is. But this is not what you're interested in. You wanted to know which price generates the right demanded quantity. And this is exactly what the demand curve tells you, and therefore you have to go all the way up until you reach the demand curve. From this point you go straight to the left and you will find out the price which generates the optimum quantity is approximately $7.80. So at this point we can summarize. The optimum quantity for the monopolist is 15.5. This is the quantity the monopolist will produce. To make sure that the optimum quantity can be sold, the monopolist should charge $7.80. That will actually generate the demanded quantity necessary to match the supplied quantity. Now that we know the optimum quantity and the price which generates a necessary demand, the question arises, can we get more information out of this diagram? Yes, we can, but we need an additional curve for that. This is the average total cost curve, which is drawn here in magenta. If we start at the optimum quantity and go upwards until we reach the average total cost curve, mark this point and go straight to the left, we reach $3.80. Because we use the average total cost curve to reach this point, $3.80 tells us these are the average total cost if we produce 15.5 units. Now we can gain more information because we know now in average it cost us $3.80 to produce 1 unit. We also know that we sell each unit for $7.80. So the difference, which is $4, is the profit per unit. But the initial question we had was, what is the overall profit? To calculate the overall profit, we would need to know how much was the quantity. But wait a moment, we know that. It's 15.5. And we know even the distance. We can measure it on the horizontal axis. This distance is the same than the width of this gray box. So now we have a gray box with a width of 15.5, which is the quantity, and a height of $4, which is profit per unit. If we multiply these two values, we get two things. First, we get the overall profit. Second, in a more geometrical way, we get the area of the gray box. Therefore, the gray box represents the profit the monopolist can make given that he produces 15.5 and sells for 7.8 with average total cost of $3.80. To summarize the result, we found that the monopolist produces 15.5. At 15.5, average total cost are $3.80. The price for which the monopolist will sell is $7.80. Therefore, the difference is $4, which is a profit per unit, and at the same time the height of the gray box. The width of the gray box are the units produced, 15.5. Width times height of the box is the area of the gray box. The area of the gray box represents the profit the monopolist can make, $62. What did you learn in this segment? You learned how to use a diagram to find the optimum quantity a monopolist should produce to maximize his or her profit. You also learned how to use the diagram to identify the price, which clears the market, and to find the maximum profit the monopolist can make. Remember, you used a 4-step approach to get these results. First, you would find the point where marginal costs equals marginal revenue. Then you would find the quantity which results from this point. To find the price which generates exactly the demanded quantity needed to match the produced quantity, the optimum quantity, you go straight up until you reach the demand curve, go to the side, and this is the price which clears the market. And then in the last step, you find the maximum profit. You need to have an average total cost curve for that. From that you calculate the average total cost. Since you have the price already, for the quantity, you know the profit per unit. You multiply the profit per unit by the quantity, and this gives you the profit. And remember, this profit is represented by the area of a rectangular box in the diagram.